Okay, welcome back. Now we're on to stage 3, the third part of the design, which for me is the most fun, the most creative part, and this is going to be putting the whole thing together. Before we do that, I'm just going to do a really quick review of where you should be at this point. You should already have picked out your cardboard box. You should have made whatever adjustments you wanted to it structurally. Remember, I put in these pieces here, so I have a 4-stage, and I'm using this as an outside flap for my design. I've also cut 2 more holes because I need 2 other light sources for the final part of this project, stage 4. So I cut a little hole here in the top, and on the side, I've cut a hole, where's it, right here. And I've also left the cardboard part so I can close that if I want to not have any light source. Okay, so here we are. I also cut out some pieces of paper that were the same size as the inside of my box. So I cut out a piece of paper that's going to be the bottom and a piece that's going to wrap around the backside because I decided I wanted to do a winter landscape. Let me say one thing about the creative process. Changes happen. Ideas that you have that you think are wonderful may not work out in the end. And to that point, I'll show you my tree idea that I was showing you in the earlier video. It's not going to work in this because it's totally out of scale. It's just too big. So I told you I liked winterscape, so I went online and I found a really cool picture that I like and I sketched it out on my piece of paper. And then I went with my craft paint and embellished it. So I just had a thin outline sketched out last time, but now you can see I put in clouds. I cut the hole for the side piece here, so when I put it all in, it's going to fit on my wall. I've left myself some extra paper because sometimes when you're adjusting things, you have to wrap it around at different points. And because my paper was a little bit too tall, I had to cut some notches on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and just insert that in there so we can see what that's going to look like. Have fun with this process. Honestly, I'm going to go through this really quickly right now, but this represents 4 to 6 hours of work that I took. My suggestion to you, take a couple days. Work on it, put it aside, bring it back out, look at it again, make some changes. I'm still probably going to make some changes before I even take my pictures. Normally I would glue this, but my glue is at school. All I have at home is some Gorilla Glue. This wood glue. This dries yellow, so I have to be careful because I've got a white interior. So I'm going to use some tape. This is some really fat tape, but the nice thing about duck and or gaff tape is you can tear it and make smaller strips with it, which is what I'm going to do to help hold this down. So let me turn this and see if you can watch me do some of this work really quick. I'm going to adhere, start on one side. I have to make sure this window lines up. So I'm going to tape that side down. Let's do 1 or 2 more. Honestly, before I take pictures, I'm going to tape this whole thing and I'm going to go ahead and tape the top edges too, just to help hold it. Maybe I'm going to roll some tape like this, put it behind so I don't have to see it at the top to let it hold on. I'm not going to do all that work now. I just want you to see how my design's coming together. Excuse me. All right, live theater, here we go. Next, I decided that I didn't just want a snow-covered valley, which is what my picture had in it. I wanted to change it up and maybe use something reflective. So I decided I was going to use a piece of aluminum foil to represent a lake. Now you'll notice I have this with the matte side out. That's important because I made some decisions about it based on what aluminum foil on the shiny side looks like, really too bright for what I want. I want a softer look, I think, eventually. So this piece would then go in for me here, and I would do the same thing, either glue or tape it around, and then there's the basic. You can just paint the inside of your box if you want to. You don't have to do this elaborate step that I did. I wanted to be able to lay out my background mountains, lay them out flat so I could paint and sketch them in a little bit better. But you can work right inside the interior of your box if you already have craft paints or acrylic paints at home and you want to use it that way. That's okay too. Or separate pieces of paper, construction paper, craft paper for each side. Doesn't matter, but we want to change it up so it's not just brown on the inside as an interior. Okay, So now I've got my basic thing, but I said we want to think three-dimensional. What's happening downstage, close to the audience, what's happening further on upstage, and how is that then going to work with my two lighting sources, here and over here, as well as front. So remember last time I showed you I'd made myself some mountains. These are pieces of cardboard with another piece of cardboard taped to the back to make a little tab to hold down, so it'll stand up a little bit better than just a piece of cardboard by itself. So I've done that to both of the backs of my mountains. And I anticipated, let's see, one of them about there. And in my original drawings, I put one way upstage here. This one may not want to stand for us, let's see. Nope. All right. That creates a sense of depth or perspective rather. One of the things I'm not liking about it is it's looking a little bald. Let's talk about my tree. Okay, last time I showed you I made this cuckoo tree out of some pipe cleaners. When I put it here now, with my mountains and everything else, it's giant. It's just too big. It doesn't work. But I do want something besides just blue and gray and white and silver. So I took little pieces of it, made a little piece of cardboard for a stand and stuck some through and glued it. And those are going to be, this one isn't painted yet, so we'll put it upstage so I don't have to look at the base. But these are going to help me create a sense of depth, a change, and also maybe hide some of those hard corners where things go together. So now I have a basic scene ready to go. As I mentioned, I designed some stuff, didn't work. It's okay, design's a process. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't. I was thinking for a while of using white felt to represent the snow, but then I got really bulky and too much going on because I wanted something cleaner and simpler looking. You can decide what your look is. Also, do not be afraid to play around with things that you have around your house. Little figurines. My nephew left me his cool little dragon toy. So I might want to play around with how something like that looks in my space. Or, well, I just knocked over the mountain. How the bunnies might look in that space. So I could play around with, do I want something like that in there? Is that too much? What can I do? While you're still working on it and before you've finished everything, see, I can still move some things around if I need to. I haven't fastened everything. I'm going to play around a little bit with light because this is going to be the fourth stage of our exercise, but we want to think about it. So I have one of these headlamps that you use outside. Oh, I don't want red. Okay, it's got a nice bright headlight. So I'm going to start thinking about where things are and see if I like I know if I go through here, I can get a nice reflection on the lake. That's kind of cool. Is anything in the way? I'm going to come around the front and look. This is blocking a little bit of my light. So I might decide this mountain either gets smaller or moves away. Or I might decide I like the shadow and that's okay. But I want to consider that. Nothing's glued down yet. I can still move and change things. Let's go over here. Ooh. A little more dramatic. I can get a lot of light. This one's a better for getting more light out there. Interesting. But I'm still going to try and use these. Now, one of the things I just discovered, of course, when I was playing around with my light here, it has color. Ooh, color is going to be very different in terms of what it'll do. Now, normally when we do this exercise at school, we have gels and gobos from our lighting stuff that we can use to augment. We're using stuff that we have at home. So I'm going to play around in the break between this and our next video and see if I can invent some kind of gel or something at home that I can color lights instead of just using my red. Okay, so now go work on your box, get it to this stage, get it all secured, and then we'll do the fourth part.